Let's talk about something very serious tonight as leaders and as people who are in positions of power. The most important thing for leaders around the world is decision making. How do you make decisions? How do you make the best of decisions? And in the center of decision making, one of the most important things to consider when you're making decision is to be able to take yourself out of the equation and make a decision to avoid biases. Now, as a leader, how do you avoid your own biases when you're making decisions, when you're handling your team, when you're making decisions for the company, or when you're leading people, when you're leading a country? How do you avoid your own bias or the biases that are, within the equation? Now, there are four kinds of biases in this situation. The first one I call the anchoring bias. Now, the anchoring bias works in such a way that I know this, so every decision I'm going to make will be anchored on that knowledge that I have. So that is anchoring bias. You know something, and so all the decisions you are going to make would fall in line with that already the pre-existing knowledge that you have. And so if you are not lucky, knowledge can also change. Things change over time. If you are not updated, if you don't have up-to-date knowledge and make decisions based on what you know, you're going to fall for the anchoring bias. The second one is called confirmation bias. Now, confirmation bias works in tandem with anchoring bias. Now, this is what I know, and something just happens and that seems to confirm what I already know. And so I would think that is the right thing to do because this is what I think I know, and what is happening seems to be confirming what I know. And so you're going to fall for the confirmation bias. Let me give you an example. In 2003, when the US was attacked during the World Trade Center, attacks, a lot of people, Al Qaeda attack on the US, a lot of people pointed fingers to Iraq, Osama bin Laden, Al Qaeda, and all that. Now, the decision was very serious at that time. How do we counter terrorism? Bush and all his CIA agents and everything, and the FBI and all the security analysts already knew that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. He had chemical weapons. But prior to that, the UN had already engaged in Iraq to denuclearize Iraq to ensure that they do not have chemical weapons or discontinue their WMD's program. Now, Bush knew and his people knew that Saddam had nuclear weapons. And so all the decisions that they made to attack Iraq was based on that knowledge that Saddam Hussein has nuclear weapons, and so he may be able to give Al Qaeda, support to attack the US, in further, attacks. So that was the anchoring bias they fell to. The confirmation bias was the fact that Saddam Hussein himself did not come out to say that I did not have nuclear weapons, and so it sort of confirmed what they thought about him. Now, the third bias is called the pendulum bias. So in leadership, if you're making decisions, the pendulum bias is, the pendulum, the one that swings like this. And so the fact that the US were not able to know prior that Saddam Hussein had nuclear weapons before he could even have it, the fact that they could not stop him from having nuclear weapons. Now, the pendulum bias works in such a way that they do not want to make the same mistake. And so the pendulum swung backwards. And so their decision was now based upon the fact that they missed the first one. And so they swung the pendulum backwards. I don't want to make the same mistake twice. And so the pendulum just swung far back. So they were making that decision based on the fact that he had it before. And the fourth one is groupthink bias. Now, everyone was pointing fingers to the Arabs. Everyone seemed to say that it is the savages in the Middle East who did the attack. Everyone was blaming the Middle East. And so that is groupthink. So if you're a leader and you're in a company or you're leading people, an organization or you're leading a country, making decisions will come to some of these serious situations. You're going to make decisions based on what you know, and your knowledge of such occurrence is going to inform your decision making. And so, to avoid making an anchoring bias, you need to update your knowledge. You need to know the current circumstances around such a development so that you do not fall foul to the anchoring bias. You do not also want to fall short of the confirmation bias. Certain things, chain of events can happen together in such a way that it confirms other things. But if you're not careful to study it, isolate the incidents differently, you're going to fall for the confirmation bias. Example, you lead in a company and they say this person is a bad person. Everyone is talking about that this person is not good, he's rude and everything. Already you are falling short of the groupthink bias. That is what everyone is saying. The fact that that is what everyone is saying does not make it true. You get it? Now, maybe the person had already made some mistakes in the past. If you're not lucky, you're going to fall short for the pendulum bias. So you do not want that thing to repeat itself. So you're making a decision based on, hindsight. Perhaps, maybe some within that week he's having a bad time, he's not really himself and he's acting up, and that confirms the fact that this person is a very bad person, is a rude person. So leadership is very important, and it all boils down to making the right decisions at the right time when it's needed. Decisions that are going to impact people's lives. And so if you're going to be in charge of people, if you're going to be in charge of any organization that runs with people, you need to be able to know these things, to be able to make decisions that will not have negative outcomes. Make sure you save this video and think about it. Bye.